3 books, 2 days, 1 beautiful island. Hi, it's me, Ivana. I like to read. Here's my shadow. It's early in the morning. We're just gonna roll with the lighting. I came back from Puerto Rico a week ago and we were there to celebrate my sister's wedding. She didn't get married in the island per se. She got married here in Boston and I had the honor of witnessing it. You don't really need a witness in Massachusetts, so I was really honored that she and her husband allowed me to be there. As a celebration, we had a dinner planned in Puerto Rico and I just thought that I would show you my beautiful island. For those of you who don't already know, I feel like I talk about this a lot, but I moved to Boston when I was 18 to go to college. Before that, I lived fully in Puerto Rico. I was born and raised there. Since graduating college, like over a decade ago now, oh my god, I have not been home as much as I would like to. I thought this would give me a really good chance to get to show you my island, to record like what we did, and also to share the books that I read. Now I'm new to vlogging and I forgot to bring a tripod. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you some B-roll for every day, and every day that I read a book, I'm gonna talk about the book that I read. So let's start with day 1. We took a red eye and here is some of the footage. So as you can see, the book that I first read was Yellowface. Now, I have never read an R.F. Kuang book. I was lucky enough to get Yellowface literally the day that it came out. I went to the library on a whim after work and I saw 3 copies. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so lucky. Like, this is a sign. I have to get this book. So I checked it out, and I don't know about you, but I really love reading books that are juicy, dramatic, and not at all like cozy when I'm traveling. I have fear of flying, and so I thought, what better book to start with than with Yellowface. I felt like it would be very page-turny. It totally was. This was juicy and it was totally what I needed. I was so enthralled by the story from page 1. It tells the story of a white 20-something-year-old woman named June Hayward. She went to college with a Chinese-American woman who is now a celebrated author named Athena Liu. One day they are out for drinks, they're having fun. I think Athena doesn't have a lot of friends, but she writes like really kick-ass books and she is like getting all sorts of recognition for her work, and June is like very jealous of her, like doesn't really like, they're not even that close. And then one fateful night when they're having drinks, something wild happens and Athena dies. I was cracking up. Like, I shouldn't be cracking up, but it was like a weird way to go, and it was kind of an embarrassing way to go. And June steals Athena's manuscript and ends up publishing the book as her own. The book is about Chinese laborers in World War I, and that starts off a whole conversation about the publishing industry, and we just get into the mind of this like deranged, delusional white girl who rebrands as Juniper Song. Song is her middle name. She wants to sound more mysterious, more Asian, and you get to see like what changes she makes to the manuscript, how she is able to mastermind this whole operation, and like the whole thing is told from her perspective, so it's extremely juicy. And we get to explore all of these issues about what is being published right now, what is deemed publishable, or what is deemed sellable. I was really worried that this book was going to be super on the nose and the author would connect the dots for us, and I think that happens a little bit at the end, but for the most part she like trusts us to know better than June here. This book really made me think about what are publishers looking for when they get a story from somebody in a marginalized group. What does the publishing industry try to do to make stories more palatable for like a white audience or a white Western audience. Juniper was really sneaky and like reckless, and also like super clueless about certain things. Like she kept messing up like Chinese surnames thinking they were first names, because in Chinese and other Asian cultures, like the surname goes before the first name, and so she's just like, why does everybody have the same first name? Like, this is so confusing, I'm gonna change it. She talks a lot about like taking things out because it's filler or repetitive or redundant or like too sad or like too scathing or too complaining. This also interrogates the trauma plot. Why do we have this idea that a story can only look one way? Who do authors write for? June does get to talking about conversations that she's had with Athena in the past, and so we get to think about, why do so many stories from people in traditionally underrepresented and marginalized groups, and in particular people of color, why do they all follow like a similar narrative, right? So a lot of conversations about the trauma plot, tokenization, how much is too much when we take from real life. That's another question that's asked in this book, thinking about like the cat person story in the New Yorker, and also thinking about the bad art friend. This book is just really interesting. It's really fun. I am terrified of planes, and I read this the whole way through. I finished right before we landed, and it was just such a wild, fun ride. And I really honestly recommend it if you're looking for something fun. I know people are like, why are people calling this unputdownable? Like, it's so, like, I have to put it down because it's so infuriating. I don't know. For me, I just really, really enjoyed the way that this was told, and I just can't wait to sink my teeth into more R.F. Kuang books. Another thing that I liked about Yellowface is that R.F. Kuang seems to be poking fun at her critics this way, and the book was really plotty and like really intensely readable, and I think that that was done on purpose so it would reach a wider audience than her other books otherwise would. And so I really hope that people read this and like think about the publishing industry in a more critical way and think about the content that they consume. So we started off our weekend with a bang with Yellowface. Next, I'm going to show you some footage. I woke up early in the morning that Sunday, and I just sat on the beach and read a book, and you'll see it in a second. Okay, so reading Couplets in the Beach and the Pool by myself was glorious. This was such a teeny tiny book. I actually bought this with a gift card. I wanted something to help me escape. I wanted something angsty. Couplets did just that. This was written by Maggie Milner, and the byline is a love story. So this is a story told in verse in different parts. I believe the book has 4 parts total, and it's about a woman who's in a relationship with a man, and she falls for a woman. It's just the roller coaster of emotions that you go through when you leave a relationship and enter a new one. It tackles queerness, polyamory, writing. Maggie Milner does a lot here. I think the book can be a little bit heavy-handed at times. There was a particular line at the beginning that I was like, okay, this is too much, but it was like about a bird. She was like, do I put it out of its misery? I mean, she didn't say it like that, but I was like, this is a lot. But sometimes you kind of want that drama in your life. Sometimes you want that angst. Angsty books are having a moment in my life, so I liked this one. The speaker goes back and forth between first person and second person, which reminds me of Arnaud, because about this she says, occasionally it occurred to you that it might be better to write the account in second person, truer to the spirit of that time. You no longer felt that experiences belonged to people in the first place. They were always the outcome of forces beyond the strictly personal, and only became art at the moment they were made available in an altered form to someone new. So basically, like, this can be relatable to folks. It talks about loving and losing and the experience being worth it. It's just a nice little book for when you want to feel strong feelings for a short amount of time. I also think that parts of this book were a little bit funny to me. Like, I really got a kick out of it. It's really nice watching someone else fall in love and persisting in spite of everything. I don't know what else I have to say about this book because I read it when I was sleep deprived too, and I really definitely want to go back to it. This tackles desire, obsession, jealousy, relationship dynamics. It was a nice read. So our last day in the island we spent in Old San Juan, which is one of my favorite places back home. And I can't wait to show you some of that footage.
Ni cobarde. Esto es un espectáculo.
Quiero hacer el perreo intenso aquí, el perreo combativo.
Antigua Plaza de las Verduras. Es también la Plaza Mayor.
We're gonna talk about the last book I read, and then we're gonna do a little haul of the books that I bought at the bookstore. The last book I read on vacation was My Last Innocent Year. To be honest, this wasn't on my TBR. I just saw it in the Lucky Day collection. My local library has such an incredible Lucky Day collection, and I was obsessed with this cover. Honestly, if it had a different cover, I probably would not have picked it up because there's a blurb inside the jacket that compares this to The Catcher in the Rye and The Great Gatsby, and I feel like those are the kinds of books that when people say that they're their favorites, I'm like, I don't know if I trust your judgment. Not to be a hater, but also to be a little bit of a hater. But then I saw that it was blurred by Julia May Jonas, who wrote Vladimir, which honestly is an honorable mention of books that I read last year that I liked and that still keep replaying in my mind. So I decided to give it a chance. This book is set in 1998 in Wilder College in New Hampshire. Campus books have been having a moment in my life too. I feel like I've been enjoying them a lot. This one tackles consent, desire, professor-student relationships, writing. It follows a Jewish girl from New York City named Isabel who is raped at the start of the book. Everything that ensues after that, she isn't even able to name it. This also happens during the Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky scandal. I was 8 when that happened. I still kind of remember like listening to adults talk about it, but I didn't quite understand what was going on. So that was really interesting. Isabel, she's one of the few Jewish students in her college. She happens to be raped by another student who is Jewish. And it just sends her thinking about consent, and this is set her senior year of college. So she has a lot of decisions to make. Isabel has also lost her mom, so it kind of gave me Writers and Lovers vibes. Even though Writers and Lovers is not a campus novel, it just still gave me those feelings, which is a compliment because I really liked Writers and Lovers. Her insights about writing were really great. Her conversations about writing with her classmates and with the professor that she ultimately gets into an affair with are also really interesting. There's a lot of talk about violence, so all the trigger warnings. It's a quiet book, but it still left an impression on me. It also reminds me of Sirens and Muses, which I read last year as well. I don't know, I feel like these are the books that end up being a little bit foggy in my mind, but I still like really enjoyed them. I was looking up reviews online and some folks said that they like didn't feel connected to the character. But I don't know, it did stir my emotions a lot and I was like almost getting teary-eyed in some parts. So I disagree with that. I feel like Isabel's insights are so strong. It's called My Last Innocent Year. She talks a lot about like, when do we go from being girls to being women? When does that happen? Which also reminds me of Annie Ernaux because Annie does talk about that in Happening. And I really did enjoy this one. I was so tired on the plane ride back. I almost didn't pick it back up. I was like, oh, I'll read it some other time. And I'm so glad that I did and that I finished it. It was just a book about trusting yourself, about growing older, about speaking your truth, and as cheesy as that sounds, it was just really nice. So I highly recommend this one. I just love coming of age angsty tales. This one was good. Here are some of the books that I got. I'm gonna do it like a rapid fire. I got this collection of poetry called Que Tiemble. To temblar is to shake, let them shake. And I think it has to do, it definitely has to do with the ousting of the governor a couple of years ago in Puerto Rico where there were a lot of protests. It came with like a little poster thing and it looks like a chapbook. It has to do with anti-machismo. I want to have a little Puerto Rican poetry shelf and I'm slowly working towards that. So every time I go back home, I like try to pick up something indie. I also bought a Roberto Bolaño book. This is El Espíritu de la Ciencia Ficción, which is the spirit of science fiction. I wasn't gonna get this, but one of the people who worked at the bookstore that I went to was like, you need to read Roberto Bolaño, and I was trying to convince them to read Annie Ernaux because they had so many like different versions of the Spanish books, and so this one is set in Mexico City. I know Roberto Bolaño is not Mexican, he's an Argentine, but I was like, oh, I'm going to Mexico City this summer, maybe I'll read it before, like to get amped. I actually have no idea what this is about. We'll figure that out. Sometimes I don't like to read blurbs. This is Mariana Enriquez's Nuestra Parte de la Noche, which is Our Share of the Night, which has a gorgeous cover in English, but I thought this cover was really cool too. The lighting is all weird, but it's like an old-timey Renaissance style religious painting. I feel like that's an angel or something. And this one is horror, and I don't know if I'm gonna read this anytime soon, but maybe. And then my mom gifted me this. It's a poetry, short story, and essay collection about contemporary Puerto Rican writers, and I'm just really happy that she gave me this because I'll read a little bit here and there. At the bookstore, I got my mom My Brilliant Friend in Spanish, and also Annie Ernaux's Simple Fashion, Pura Pasión in Spanish. I had such a good time going back home and spending time with my family and celebrating. I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity and that I could take a little bit of time off of work. I just love going back home and I feel such a sense of pride, and I also feel so much guilt that I'm not there and that I'm not living there anymore, because it was truly a privilege to grow up there. I love my teeny tiny island and I can't wait to visit it again. I hope to continue sharing more and creating more vlogs. Thank you so much for reliving this time with me. Connect with me downstairs if you wish, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.